Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. It's time for another episode of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. This is Elixis. He's playing a tier 6 match in his Hellcat on Windstorm, and if you caught that comment in chat right at the start, that's the Valentine on his team, who is a whiny little bitch who doesn't like playing World of Tanks unless he's top tier and he can troll everybody with the Valentine's armour. Oh, that's a bit harsh, Jingles. You can't call somebody a whiny little bitch just because they're sick and tired of the matchmaker putting them at the bottom of the team list. No, you're right, I can't. But I'm not calling him a whiny little bitch because he doesn't like the matchmaking. I'm calling him a whiny little bitch because he's suiciding right at the start of the match because he doesn't like the matchmaking. And there he is, in the deep water, under the bridge. Any second now. Bingo. Valentine is drowned. He's a whiny little bitch. That in itself would be bad enough. But have a look at what's going on over on the other side of the map in the town. Leopard, Hellcat, Panzer IV-H, T-3485, and following them up at the rear, you can't quite see them on camera yet, there's a KV-2. Watch these guys. Leopard has just drowned himself. The Hellcat has just drowned himself. And the Panzer IV-H has just drowned himself, which leaves the T-3485 with his arse hanging in the breeze. Those three guys suiciding have just doomed this guy to practically instant death. And the KV-2 that's following them up is probably not feeling pretty confident about his chances either. 4 of his team suicided right at the start of the match. They're now down the T-3485, who suddenly found himself without 3 allies, up against half a dozen enemy tanks, and now the KV-2 is completely alone in the town. So it's a good start to the match. It is of course entirely possible that the 3 guys who suicided over there in the southern end of the map didn't do it on purpose. It's entirely possible that they're just that incredibly stupid. None of which is any consolation whatsoever to the poor guy in the T-3485, or the guy in the KV-2 who's now got his back right up against the wall with a whole bunch of enemy tanks in the town and no backup whatsoever. But he digs in and he's going to make a good fight of it. They've actually managed to kill an enemy tank, but they're down 4 tanks. Actually, they're down 5 tanks and they've just lost another one, so they're now down 6 tanks, and 4 of them never fired a shot. The enemy team is going to have to suck colossal amounts in order for Elixis' team to pull a win out of this one. So, just to put this into perspective, the enemy team were winning 4-0 before any of them had even fired a shot. Do you see that windmill up ahead? Just remember the position of that windmill while Elixis drives around the rear of these enemy tanks who have actually bothered to leave their base, and gets spotted by them while he's putting shots into their back end. He's going to get a second shot into this VK, set him on fire, and finish him off. There we go. Nice. Final enemy tank. Yep. He's done. Remember that windmill. Remember that windmill as Elixis drives around and gets lit up by another 2 enemy tanks. Imagine if only there had been an enemy tank camping the back of the map up behind that windmill and able to put some shots into Elixis as he was lighting up that VK from the rear. Oh look, it's one of the... Mark 7 Churchill was up there the entire time. Yes, this is the kind of opposition that allows Elixis' team to come back from being 4-0 down, in fact 5-0 down at the start of the match, after they lost the T-3485, and bring the scores to 8-9. Because you're playing World of Tanks, and with teammates like this, absolutely anything is possible. Do you remember those 2 guys in the enemy base that Elixis got spotted by as he crossed the river to come up and fight this Churchill? Yeah, they're both AFK. AFK artillery, and there's an AFK T1 heavy there as well. Obviously, they didn't like the matchmaking either. Elixis takes 1 hit from that Churchill, and then he finishes him off. The rest of Elixis' team sweep into the base. The enemy Hummel is not AFK. But, well, he's going to get to shotgun the Su-85I, and then he's going to be put out of his misery as the Su-85I and the Sherman Jumbo finish off the T1 Heavy and then kill the Hummel. So, this team gave the enemy, on a silver plate, a 5-kill lead at the start of the match. That's a third of his team. I mean, the Valentine suicided deliberately because he didn't like the matchmaking. So, you know, he's a scumbag. The Leopard, the Hellcat, and the Panzer IV-H didn't necessarily suicide deliberately. It's entirely possible that they're just that stupid. But either way, the result is exactly the same. And their rank incompetence led immediately to the death of the T-3485 on their team, who suddenly found himself facing any number of enemy tanks without any kind of backup whatsoever. 2 of the enemy team were AFK, including one of their artillery and one of their heavy tanks. One of their heavy tanks may as well have been AFK for all the input he made into the game. And once again, it's all boiled down to the actions of just a couple of the players on each team. Special shout out to the SU-100Y on Alexis's team, by the way, who's on 3 kills. He's going to get his 4th. And the second he saw the disaster that was unfolding in the town, down there to the south, he set himself up and single-handedly fought off 6 or 7 enemy tanks, killing 3 of them, in order to keep the base secure. And he's about to get himself a kill on the Hellcat and finish this match. Unbelievable. Here's a little game I played a while back in the T110E4. We've won the town, but the other flank has collapsed, and we're being capped, so we're rushing back to try to reset the cap. There's still time for us to get there, but there are 2 tanks, mediums like that, Panther 88, who have just ammo racked, and there's also an E50M up there that are coming out in order to delay us from getting back to reset the cap. IS-7's getting hit there by that AMX 5100. He's also taken some flanking fire from the E50M. The IS-7's down, but I kill the AMX 5100. Now I have to deal with this E50M. I can't reset the cap while I've got a tier 10 medium tank on my side and rear. I'll die before I get there, so I have to fight this guy and hope that my platoon mate in the FV4005 can get there and reset the cap. So I put one into him and then he starts circling me, and it's not looking too good, and he's blown my tracks off, my engine's been crippled. I use the repair kit, but have a look at chat. This is the mouse on my own team who would rather see me die than win the game. You see, that's the only problem with multiplayer gaming. It's the people who play it. People like one of the douchebags that you're going to see in this match. This is a tier 9 match on mines. This is Pancakes 99 in the AMX 5120 French tier 9 heavy tank with the 120mm auto-loading gun. Although, having said that, judging by the amount of shots that he's about to load into the magazine, it looks like Pancakes hasn't actually unlocked the 120mm gun yet, and he's still using the 100mm gun. This is actually quite an old replay. I've had this on my hard drive for a long time, and I'd completely forgotten about it. But I felt that it was, well, it was appropriate for today's episode of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Now, Pancakes is trying to get up onto the hill, but, well, yeah. The side armour of the AMX 5120, he's going to have to expose it to those guys, and now there's an AMX 1390 there as well. And this tank does not have very good side armour at all. His team have taken possession of the hill, however, which is vital when you're playing on mines. It's very difficult to lose if your team controls the hill when you're playing a mine standard battle. In fact, the hill also dominates the map if you're playing encounter mode. And Pancakes has decided to have a go and get up there. He's taken 1 shot, second one penetrates. Not too bad. He only took 1 shot from the AMX 1390 and managed to get this big old tank up on top of the hill. And his team are completely dominating. They've got the hill. They've basically commanded the entire map. The enemy team are trying to push around to the north on the lower ground around the hill, but they're being blocked by a couple of heavies on Pancake's team. Pancakes gets spotted, but he finds an AT7 who may be AFK in the cap circle. Now, of course, Pancakes has been spotted, and in very rapid succession, and the AT7 moved, so he's not AFK, he's just sitting in the middle of the cap circle. Pancakes takes 2 big hits. Now, Pancakes doesn't claim to be a unicorn player. In fact, statistically, he's not actually that good. But he does at least know the basics. He pulls back, so the bush that he's firing through is no longer transparent, which means nobody's going to see him firing through it. And he gets to put a further 2 shots into the AT7, one of them blind, and takes the kill. He's got 2 shots left. Now, while he's figuring out what to do with his remaining 2 shots, have a look at the map. Look at the position of the IS-3 on his team. all the way down there in the bottom southwest end of the map. He hasn't actually fired his gun yet. We're going to see more of him later. Meanwhile, 2 shots remaining. There's the enemy AMX 5120, puts 1 in, and the final shot bounces off the angled turret of the Tiger. So he's reloading. He pulls back to reload his 100mm gun. Meanwhile, the IS-3 on his team has actually made it down to the island and does absolutely nothing while he's down there. He's not having a very good game. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. Anybody can have a bad game. Meanwhile, Pancakes is almost reloaded. There's an enemy M103. Again, he can't see through the bushes. He's not the one spotting the M103, so he can fire from here without the M103 actually seeing him. Just needs to have this gun reloaded. There we go. Reloaded, and he starts putting fire into the M103. 2 shots. The M103's gone, surely. 3rd one. Oh, it bounced. Come on, you can have him. And it bounced. Oh, he's got him. He got the M103. So that's 2 blind kills so far, the AT7 and the M103. He's only got 1 shot left. You're going to reload or you're going to use it. If there's an opportunity to use it, then go ahead and use it. And he cannot see that guy. There is not an opportunity to use it. That's a bit of a shame. Okay, so he's going to go for the reload. Meanwhile, our friend in the IS-3 drove all the way over to the island, did nothing when he was there, and now he's driving all the way back. Once again, he hasn't actually fired his gun yet. Now, remember, this does not make him a bad player or a bad person. Everybody can have a bad game of World of Tanks. It can happen to the best of us. We'll come back and check on his progress in a moment. Meanwhile, it's back to Pancakes. Pancakes is still on top of the hill. He's about to reload the gun, and there's a lurver down there below him. Now, the lurver is spotting him, proximity detecting him. So enemy artillery definitely has his location, and there's a whole bunch of friendlies up there in a nice big tight location that's just asking to get shot at by artillery. Going after the lurver would not be a particularly smart move, but how much attention is this Black Prince paying? It turns out absolutely none whatsoever, so that was the easiest kill ever. Turns around, puts 1 into the lurver, takes a massive hit from the artillery, almost 800 damage. Very, very nearly kills him, but he finishes off the lurver. Now there's just the Tiger 2 and the artillery left. Now the artillery has just fired. There's the Tiger 2. There's a Top Gun on the table here if you can kill the Tiger 2 and then get the artillery. But we're going to leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger there, because to see what happens next, we're going to have to go back to our friend in the IS-3. At this point there are still 4 enemy tanks remaining. He still hasn't fired his gun the entire game, the poor guy. He comes up around the corner at the top end of the hill, and there's the Tiger 2. He takes a hit from the Tiger 2, fires his gun for the first time in the game, and misses. He then makes a complete mess of getting into cover, which allows the lurver to put 1 into him. Meanwhile, Pancakes has just killed the Black Prince, finishes off the lurver. The Tiger 2 puts another 1 into him. He finally does some damage, scores a hit on the Tiger 2, then artillery almost finishes the Tiger 2 off, and Pancakes comes around the corner and kills him. And that appeared to really piss this IS-3 off, because the very next shot he fired team killed Pancakes, stopped him from getting his Top Gun, and caused the IS-3 to turn blue and immediately have his account suspended. Now you might be sitting there thinking, well, Pancakes only had 41 health, 41 team damage, and you immediately get your account suspended. That does seem a bit harsh. Well, he didn't get his account suspended because he did 41 damage to Pancakes. He got his account suspended because that is not the first time he's done this today. He is in fact a serial douchebag who whines, rages, and throws all of his toys out of the pram whenever somebody steals one of his kills and he's not having a very good game. Not much consolation for Pancakes, however. That could have been a very, very good game for him. Speaking of games that should have been fantastic results, this is Rita Gamer in the T-30 American Tier 9 turreted tank destroyer. She's in a Tier 9 match on Ruinberg. I actually watched this on Rita's live stream and then demanded she send me the replay to include in an episode of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. This happened last week. This is another one of those what the hell were you thinking replays. And it's not Rita. Well, I'm not going to spoil it or give it away. It's a guy on Rita's team that, based on his performance in this match, you would not expect him to do the monumentally dumbass thing that he does right at the end of this match. But enough spoilers. Just watch the game and enjoy, and then gasp in horror when you see what happens at the end. So she's in the T-30. It's on Ruinberg. It's an encounter match. It's like an IS-3 in front of her. Wargaming put that truck there deliberately, by the way. It's going to interfere with anybody attempting to shoot from this location, and you've got to ask yourself the question, is it worth spending a couple of thousand credits with one of these 155mm shells to get rid of that thing and make sure that we get the full penetration on the next shot that we fire? Or take the chance that shooting through that truck is not going to rob our shot of so much penetration that it bounces off whatever we're shooting at? They're fiendish when it comes to map design like this. Anyway, Rita's waiting patiently at the junction here. Hold down in... Oh, no, not quite. It's an RU-251. No, didn't have the shot. Well, they know she's here now. Luckily, there is no artillery in this match, so that is actually a very, very strong position for a tank like the T-30. But the Tortoise here is not having any of it. He's moving up, so Rita comes out, plants a shot. That was actually quite a good shot. Straight through the... It penetrated the lower glacis of the E-75, and it was very, very well angled. So, okay, she's already ahead on points. Now here comes the Jagdtiger. E-75, and the Tortoise here, by the way, doing a fantastic job angling his armour. This is not the kind of range at which a Tortoise tends to do well if it's sitting still. You've got to angle, you've got to waggle, you've got to deny the enemy shots at your commander's cupola there. But a Tortoise and a T-30, the Jagdtiger is seriously outgunned here. Oh, turret front of the T-30 ridiculously thick, practically impossible to penetrate. Bounce shots off the front of that turret absolutely all day. He's going for the Jagdtiger again. Oh, yep, good shot, and again bounce the return shot from the Jagdtiger. Meanwhile, have a look at the map. You know, while all this is going on, it's all fun and games, but the team are losing 5-1, and almost every single tank that went up the eastern end of the map has died. That is probably not... No, that was never going to penetrate the Jagdtiger, not at that kind of angle. However, Rita has been paying attention to the map while she was putting shots into that Jagdtiger, and she can see exactly what's about to come around that corner at the bottom end of the road. Pretty much her entire team, they're losing 2-7, and they're all hemmed into one corner of the map, and here come the enemy, and it's a Waffenträger Panzer IV, and, well, she's punched his ticket. And she's in another great position here. She's hulled down. I'm not entirely sure everybody else on the team has realised that they're about to be surrounded and outflanked. AMX CDC there pops out and puts a very, very accurate and well-aimed shot into a commander's cupola, but it's only an AMX CDC. Taking one hit from that thing isn't exactly going to break the bank. T-28 prototype comes out and pays heavily for bouncing a shot off the turret front of the T-30. That guy's now a one-shot kill. Rita falls back, reloads, having a look around. The only reason the team aren't 100% surrounded is because it's physically impossible for the enemy to attack them from the west. Meanwhile, T-34 comes blundering across the road. Rita puts one into him as well. He takes another hit from a friendly teammate. Oh, and he's gone. Is he gone? No, he's not gone yet, but he is about to be. There they go, they've killed the T-30. Rita's about to reload. Doesn't have to worry about artillery routing her out of this position here. Going for the shot on the RU-251. Nothing on the T-28. Is this AMX-30 going to pop out? The AMX-30 is going to pop out. And scores a good hit on the AMX-30, but doesn't kill him. That's going to be critical. They are completely surrounded here, of course. There's all kinds of big, nasty tank destroyers like that T-30 on the enemy team coming around from the other side. So Rita digs in and prepares to deal with the enemy T-30 that was spotted coming around this corner. She can't afford to let that guy with that big gun get around behind her E-50 and Object 704, who were the only two tanks on the team covering her left flank. But there's no sign of that T-30. He appears to have not been able to make his mind up. Meanwhile, the team have started pulling the scores back. They were down 7-10. They're now down 9-10. There's only one tank in it. And with no sign of the T-30 on the left flank, she turns her attention back to supporting this IS-3, who's gone down to try and root out that T-28 prototype. But, remember the AMX-30? He's down there, he's pulled right back. He's no longer being spotted. He took a big hit from Rita's T-30, he didn't like that very much, and he's pulled right back down at the bottom end of that road. And he put a long-range shot into and killed that IS-3, and Rita can't see him. Meanwhile, the other two surviving tanks on her team, the Object 432 and the Object 704, really start earning their money. The The Object 704 has just scored his second kill, taken out yet another enemy tank. Rita knows that there he is, the T28 prototype, and yes, this guy is actually trying to side scrape with 50mm of side armour against Rita's 155mm gun. You don't try to side scrape in the T28 prototype, guys. It does not work. It does not have the side armour. The scores are now even. It's 12-12. On the bright side, Rita's tanks are all in the same location, so they can support each other. That AMX-30 was down the bottom end of that road. Now, before he relocates, Rita's team really should bunch together and sort out these two enemy tanks while they've got the numbers advantage against them. There goes the AMX CDC. He's a one-shot kill. It looks like the Object 432 is going around to try to take care of the AMX CDC, so Rita, instead, gets much more value out of her firepower if she kills the E50. There's her third kill. The 432 is going around after the CDC. Unfortunately, he screws it up, and the CDC kills him. He's not very happy about that. But while he's having a good curse about CDC drivers who use gold ammunition, you can quite clearly see that the AMX-30 didn't hang around at the bottom end of that road waiting to get shot at by a T-30, and he did come around to try to back up the rest of his team. It wasn't enough to save the E-50, but now we know where he is. So the Object 704 is going after the CDC, Rita is going after the AMX-30, and Rita does screw this up. The AMX-30 puts one into her, she fires on the move and misses. Now, she is fully aware that this AMX-30 can reload and kill her before she reloads this 155mm gun, so she takes one for the team. She drives right into him, forces him right back up against the corner of this building, angles her tank so that he cannot get out. He reloads and kills her before she reloads her gun, but he is now firmly stuck in here. The Object 704 has killed the AMX CDC. All the Object has to do to win the match is cap. That's it. That's all he has to do. He's right next to the cap circle. It's just down there at the other end of the road. There he is. Don't do it, Object 704. It's an AMX-30 hull down behind the wreckage of a T-30. Just go and cap. That's all you have to do. You just have to cap. Look, he can't get out. You can quite clearly see that he just does not have the engine power to move the wreck of Rita's T-30. He is stuck. He cannot kill you. He is no threat. Please, just go and cap. All you had to do was cap. 5,000 damage done. And more experience on a defeat than the best player on the enemy team, who was that AMX-30, got for winning. Oh, God. We need something to cheer us up now, don't we? Don't worry, I've got that covered. This is Tanker Boy, and he is in the T54 Mod 1. It's basically a T44, with some differences. There's the ammunition, 175mm of penetration on its AP, 235 on its APCR, so its regular credit ammunition isn't particularly good, but its armor-piercing, composite-rigid premium ammunition isn't bad at all. There are other differences, of course. You could think of this as a T44, which doesn't have the same mobility and top speed, but has better armor and better DPM. Probably the biggest problem with this tank is it doesn't have much ammunition. It only carries 34 rounds, and it fires them at 7.41 rounds per minute, hence the good damage per minute. But it's very easy to run out of ammunition in this tank. Meanwhile, going on in chat there, yep, you can see the XBM users crying about the predicted 30% chance of winning this match, and it's very refreshing to see the response from Tanker Boy's team. Well, we're just going to have to carry harder then, aren't we? And Tanker Boy, load the gold! And then he doesn't load the gold. But it's refreshing to see that kind of attitude when XBM is saying, yeah, there's a 70% chance you're going to lose this one. And I do love the name of the IS-6 driver on his team as well. Frothy Bum Squeeze. I mean, how nobody's complained and forced him to change that name yet, I have no idea. There are some good names, actually, of some of the players on these teams. We've got the VK4502 driver on the enemy team. Well, he was going for the witching hour, but he hasn't spelled it correctly, so there's that. AMX 3090 on the enemy team. Alles kaputt. So, you know, there's that to keep us occupied, while Tanker Boy is looking for his first target. Tanker Boy does act like a bit of a dick in chat at the start of this match, when artillery very nearly landed a hit on him right there. He's been spotted by the enemy tier 8 light tanks. They're all down there at the bottom end of the map. In fact, he does take a hit from one of them. There it is. And there's an enemy challenger coming over here as well. And he lets rip in chat about the gay artillery. Tanker Boy shooting at targets that have been lit up by the light tanks. That's kind of what artillery is for. You don't have to like it, but you know, you don't have to be a dick about it either. Anyway, he's had enough of getting shot at by light tanks and artillery, so he relocates into the centre of town. Meanwhile, poor old Frothy Bumsqueeze in the IS-6 up there, he's just been caught out by the Lorraine, so no Frothy Bumsqueezes for you. But Tanker Boy has caught the Lorraine on the reload. The Lorraine hastily beats a retreat, artillery loops a shot right over the top and narrowly misses him. So, I mentioned that the T-54 Mod 1 doesn't really have the same mobility and top speed as the T-44, and you can kind of see that here. But to be fair, the Lorraine isn't exactly making it difficult for him. The Lorraine really doesn't have any options but to turn around and face him and try to get past him, but, well, it's just not going to happen. And he might only have 175mm of penetration with his armour-piercing ammunition, but that's more than enough to get through the flimsy armour on a Lorraine 40D. And there's an enemy tier 9 medium. So he casually plants a shot into his cute but perfectly formed Chinese arse, dodges his return shot. That WZ-120 is also running right out of options because Tanker Boy is sealing off his retreat. He's got a bunch of enemy tanks up in front of him, his tracks have been blown off, Tanker Boy gets around behind him, puts another shot into him, not enough to kill him. He goes down fighting, of course, but one more shot is all it's going to take, and even with his regular AP ammo, he cannot fail to kill him at that kind of range, particularly from the rear. T-44 scores are now 6-5, by the way. That kill put his team ahead, paying no attention whatsoever to the multiple enemy tanks rushing up on his flank. He took 2 hits while still focusing all the way down that road, just not watching what was going on around him. Speaking of which, watch the Su-8. He's still firing at targets on the other end of the map while under fire from and within direct line of sight of a whole bunch of enemy tanks, just not paying attention to what's going on around him. So much tunnel visioning going on in this match. That T-44 sitting there waiting to take shots at the front of Tortoises and Conquerors while there's a friendly WZ-120 dying practically right next to him. The Su-8 still trying to score hits on Tier 9 heavies and tank destroyers at the other end of the map, while there's a T-44 and a WZ-120 dying right next to him. But that kill on the Batchat artillery was Tanker Boy's 4th kill, and it's put his team ahead 9-8. Now this could still go either way. Don't forget, the enemy team have a 70% chance to win according to XVM. And this is where things almost go horribly wrong. AMX 3090 down there, T-34-3 over there, and behind them, blowing the tracks off the E50, WZ-132. T-34-3 takes a shot, I think at him, but it missed, and bounced off the armour of the E50. You can't sit here getting shot at by 3 tanks at the same time, so he goes after the WZ-132. Finishes him off. Doesn't want to expose the side of his tank while he's turning around to the T-34-3. The E50 still has plenty of health, and he's angled the right way against the T-34-3, so instead he goes after the AMX 1390, who is about to discover the difference between the frontal armour of the T-44 and the T-54 Mod 1. Tanker Boy shoots him once, rams him, backs up, revs up for another ram. Of course, you know, it's all half a dozen of one and 6 of another. If he'd been in the T-44, he would have been able to generate enough speed that he wouldn't have had to put a 3rd shot into him, and he could have finished him off with the ram kill. Meanwhile, his platoon mate in the E50 has finished off the T-34-3. The scores are 12-12. Now, this is where Tanker Boy's platoon, himself and his platoon mate in the E50, make a critical decision. The T-49 is sitting in the cap and he's yelling for help, and they choose to ignore him and head back to their own flag and reset the cap against the Jag Tiger, who's just killed the KV-3 and is sitting in their own cap circle. Now, this means that the T-49 is going to die. But this is the right decision to make. There's a Tier 9 and Tier 8 heavy tank closing in on that T-49. He has less than 150 health, and if he insists on staying inside the cap circle, there is no way he's going to not take a hit from either of those guys. Which means that if these two had gone back to assist him, they would have lost the cap, and the Jag Tiger, well, they wouldn't have had time to get back down here and reset their own cap. So, harsh reality though it is, If the T-49 insisted on sitting inside the cap circle with 2 heavy tanks bearing down on him, they had to abandon him. They have to get back here and reset the Jagdtiger, even if it means losing the T-49. Now, they've found the Jagdtiger, but they're being smart about it. They're doing the old bait and switch. The E-50's waving the red flag. He's saying, look over here, and Tanker Boy comes up behind him and says, yep, well, you should have been looking over here. The Jagdtiger does the only thing he can do under the circumstances. He charges forward, gets himself into some cover, and puts a big shot into the E-50, blows his tracks off. He uses a repair kit, and Tanker Boy's cursing the limited mobility of the T-54 Mod 1 right now. It may cost the E-50 his life. Come on, reload that gun. Reload that gun. E-50's hanging on by a thread there, but he does it. He manages to kill the Jagdtiger. Of course, the E-50 is not looking very, very healthy at all. And here comes some seriously big trouble. The VK4502 takes a shot at the E-50 and misses. Here comes the IS-3. IS-3 is going to be significantly easier to deal with than that monster of a Tier 9 heavy tank, particularly from the front. Although, well, Tanker Boy has obviously switched to premium ammunition here. He's got 235mm of penetration with this. Fires a shot, takes off the IS-3's tracks. IS-3 fires, hits his 120mm of sloped frontal armour, bounces off harmlessly. IS-3 going around, they making the decision to try to focus down and kill the E-50 first, which I suppose is the sensible thing to do. It turns a 2-on-2 fight into a 2-on-1 fight, but Tanker Boy finishes off the IS-3. The VK4502 has taken some damage from the E-50, but he finishes off the E-50, and now it's Tier 9 heavy tank against Tier 8 premium medium tank, and Tanker Boy is really cursing the limited mobility of the T-54 Mod 1 right now. I can tell you with supreme confidence right now that if Tanker Boy did not have some premium ammunition, he would have lost this fight. Even the premium ammunition is barely capable of getting through the angled side armour of this monster Tier 9 heavy tank, and it just cannot penetrate this guy from the front. It's good enough for getting through the weak spots of higher tier enemy tanks from the front, but this thing doesn't have any frontal weak spots. The machine gun port is not actually a weak spot. The driver's hatch is not actually a weak spot. And because it's such a tall tank, at this kind of range, he can't even hit his commander's hatch. He's had his tracks blown off. He's got to get around this guy. No, none of these are weak spots. Not even your premium ammunition is going to go through that. You've got to get around the side, Tanker Boy, and don't let him shoot you again. Oh, I think he's got him. Yes! Oh, finally. So, if anybody wants to know what a 30% predicted chance to win looks like from XVM, you can tell them it looks like a Radley Walters medal and a mark of excellence on the barrel of a T-54 Mod 1, because that's exactly what Tanker Boy got out of that one. Almost 3,000 experience, over 136,000 credits, 5,000 damage done. In fact, he earned so much money out of that match that despite firing off 16 rounds of APCR ammunition, he still made a profit. And that's it for this week's episode of The Good, The Bad and The Ugly. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and don't forget, it's Tank Fest this weekend. I'll be there Saturday and Sunday, both days. If you're going to the Tank Museum for Tank Fest, and if not, why not? I do hope to see you there. As always, folks, take care, and I'll catch you next time.